Hi, everyone. This is episode 66 of the Colin Gallagher podcast, and I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Our intention is for us to be a channel you can tune into and be a fly on the wall to my most inner thoughts, as well as be a fly on a wall to listen to leaders who are in my network, as well as people throughout life that I meet. Because as you know, the frequency you listen to and let vibrate inside your head is what you become. So we desire to be a channel that allows you to tune in to receive the frequency, for you to expand your life, live a life with freedom, and become everything you know you're meant to become while falling madly in love with life. I'm super, super excited for this episode, you guys. I feel like every person I bring on just keeps getting better and better and better. And she's a very special mentor and woman who's extremely, extremely successful, super humble, and she's created a lot of real wealth and health and beauty in her life, not just from sales figures, which we'll get into, but from her friends, her family, her business, her body, just her holistic being. And so before I introduce her, I want to go through today's podcast sponsor. Today, our podcast is brought to you by BB. BB is a Scandinavian brand that makes backpacks and bags to help people on the move stay ready for anything, from the streets to the peaks. BB's gear is travel tested by some of the world's best athletes, adventurers, and creators. Over the past decade, BB has designed and developed, released, and refined the best bags in the market. With BB's patented hookup system, you are able to attach smaller products to your backpack, roller, or tote. We are teaming up with BB to exclusively offer our listeners 10% off on your next purchase by using the code POD10 or going to the link in the show notes. BB, it's time to move on, time to get going. And with that, today's episode is the Katrina Ruth. She's known, yes. She's known for creating the word badassery, for you guys knowing what that means if you've heard of her, and also for generating over $20 million worth of cash received online. She's the leader of creating a home for those of us who are called crazy, mad, chaotic, unrealistic, and also relentless in what we are. She's an author of at least 10 books, has at least over 100 online programs or things that she's done and launched. And she has 4 other businesses besides her personal brand, 2 beautiful children, and meant to get married to her husband she was with 5 years ago, but due to the mind manipulation of the world, had to cancel her wedding, as well as an incredible example of what is possible when you do the inner work to become all of who you are. So with that, Kat, welcome.
That was such a beautiful intro. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I have no idea what's going to come through, but I just know it will be perfect freaking fire and flow and gold.
Yeah. So what I want to start out with basically is like, how did you get here? I mean, and for those of you who are watching the video, Kat has like this 3-dimensional brain that comes out of her right now from this art. That's like these zigzags that are coming out of her. So like, how did we get here with you, with this art piece, and you in this business and this life and this career, and the impact, like what happened?
Yeah, you might have to cut me off. I will try and answer this in like less than 3 hours. So feel free to interject at any time. But I think for me, like so many, and I know you can resonate with this, and nearly everyone who comes into my space can resonate with this on some level. It was just a knowing that was always there. It was like a pulse that has beat inside of you since before time began. And, for each of us, I think we figure out at obviously different ages or different points on the journey what that means, or we start to kind of realize that we're different or whatever, and we begin to learn how to articulate it. But for me, it was really just a knowing. And as I grew up, I was following a pretty traditional pathway in terms of where I thought my life was going to go. I was very academic. I come from a very academic family. It was just very much expected that you'll be, the top of all your classes and then the top of the school. And both my parents were, top of their school. And that was the thing, right? Like if I would come home with A as a grade, which is our grading system here, ABC, etc., then it would be, well, what went wrong? Why wasn't it an A plus or an A plus plus, And it wasn't harsh or anything like that. It was kind of just assumed. It was like, but that's who you are. That's who we are. So with that, my plan was to become a lawyer because, it was a prestigious, career pathway to aim for. And I felt like I really wanted to use my words a lot and I wanted to win arguments. Like I just remember thinking this from a young age that, I get paid to use my words and paid to kind of convince people to my way of thinking, which is pretty much what ended up happening, just in a different pathway. So everything was like aimed towards that throughout my entire childhood. So much so that we actually lived in Germany during my teens for my father's work. We don't have German heritage, at least not in an obvious way. But we were moved there for my dad's work. And so I was schooling in Germany in a little village and, speaking German. And we actually moved back to Australia in large part so that I could complete high school in Australia in order to do my, final high school legal studies in order to get into law in Australia. So it was very much like part of the overall family plan. But the funny thing was that the entire time, almost beneath the surface, I guess now I can understand. I was like, okay, so in the energetic world, on that side of things, I always knew that what I was going to do was write, speak, share a message, and impact millions and millions of people to be who they're meant to be, to live according to their values. And as I say, to press play on what's inside of them. And it was like, I always knew that. And I can look back at certain touch points throughout. And like, I remember being 8 years old and standing in this, long line of kids in the schoolyard, and we were waiting to go in for something. And there was a girl in front of me who was a year above me. I didn't know her. And I just remember to this day, like looking at her, and she was so sad and disconnected and, like one of those people that doesn't really have many friends and whatnot. And I just remember thinking, I can help you to feel happy, and like having these weird thoughts when I was 8 years old. But what's funny is I was so uncool. Like I wasn't like some cool kid in the schoolyard that, that like had any right to be saying I knew how to help someone be popular and be like, happy or cool or whatever I was thinking in my, kid minds at the time. But I remember thinking that. And then I remember being about 11, maybe 10 or 11. And I was always such a reader, and like mum would take us to the library a lot after school. We could loan out books, but there was always a limit, and I was always running out of books to read. So I started going to my dad's bookshelves from whatever age, and I certainly read some inappropriate adult fiction, but I also came across, all my dad's personal development books, and he had all the originals, like what I would call the godfathers of personal development from that sort of era, like the original Tony Robbins books and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Harry Beckwith and kind of all the usuals. And I just remember flicking through these books. I don't think I read them thoroughly at that age, but I remember flicking through, and I remember standing there in my dad's office, and just feeling, not even thinking, like just knowing, oh yeah, that's what I'll do. And it was a soul recognition. It was a soul recognition, like reading Tony's book and just thinking, yeah, but not thinking, as I said, just seeing it, just, yeah, of course, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to write and I'm going to speak, and millions of people are going to read my stuff and watch my stuff or whatever. But I never, it was like two parallel worlds. It wasn't like I was then talking to my parents about this idea of a career path or making moves. All the moves were to become a lawyer. And I was always that good girl, and I was like the teacher's pet in the school square and the academic one and whatnot. But by the age of like maybe 16, we had just moved back from Germany. The rebellion started to kick in a bit, but I think it had always been there, and I'd been like playing that game. But in the end, anytime I really strongly believed something, I just kind of had to speak up for it, and I had to share it. And by the time I was that age, I think I just started to step back from the whole system and feel like, I don't think I have to do this. But I was definitely still playing the game. Like I wanted the recognition. I wanted all those, I wanted all those awards at the end of school. And I got all the awards. Like I was called up for every single class that I was in as the top student or what have you. And it was just mind boggling to me, because I'd kind of like opted out a lot on the last few years of school. I figured out how to, I don't know, get the top grades, do the best, pull magic out of my ass, basically. Never really study or learn or put the time in that you were meant to put in, but I still always got the best result because I just knew that I would and that I should, and it was an expectation in my family and in myself. So I was really starting to learn, and obviously there've been other things before that, but in a big way I was starting to learn I can just do shit with my mind and like feeling bad about it, right? Like feeling like, especially growing up in a very Christian home, and my family's Christian to this day, I'm Christian to this day, but like many, I went through a period for years of feeling like the way I can just seem to decide stuff and then it happens, or, knowing things very specifically in advance and then them happening down to the dot point, not even just to do with me, but like worldwide or whatever. Like I really hid that and I pushed it down, and I just kind of went more into, okay, I'm going to use these different powers and abilities that I seem to have, but I'll kind of pretend it's not really a thing, and I definitely won't talk about it. But meanwhile, yeah, I got the grades, I got into law school, I went along to university, we don't have college here, university, And within a week, just to cut this story a bit short, I just knew I'm actually not going to do it. Like, it had already been building up in me and those ladies in high school, thinking, I don't think I'm going to do this. Like, I don't think I'm going to do this whole do your life the way I've been told to and the way I always thought I would. But it wasn't until I got to university that I really just thought, yeah, I actually don't have it in me. And it was a huge realization that a lot of what had probably driven me in school to be the best was because I liked that admiration and recognition from the teachers. I liked being seen as like the top one, and it was a known thing, you know. Whereas in university, there's too many kids, there's too many students, you're lost in a crowd, nobody knows whether or not you went to the lecture, it's not that tracked. And without that kind of validation, I just sort of drifted. So I kept going to school though, because I didn't want to tell my parents. But what I did was I just set up a little store in the back of the health food store in the retail section of the campus, and I was giving students facials, like skincare. I brought my skincare products in from home. I got some face cloths from basically like Walmart type store, and I put a sign out that said stress relief for students, $50. I was completely unqualified to do this, and I did that for a while, and then took off back to Europe and back to Germany, and basically came back, and I just felt like I had completely destroyed my life, and what was I doing? And I was meant to be this low person and blah, blah, blah. And next thing I became a personal trainer because I was sort of into fitness, and I figured out I could make some pretty great money with it. And it wasn't until, and I did great at that. And I made a lot of money. I helped a lot of people. I had a lot of fun, but it wasn't until the online world sort of started to come about a little bit that I found my footing again with words, with writing, with my message. I mean, it had been coming through the whole time in anytime I talked to anyone, but particularly as a trainer in my sessions, it wasn't really like squats and bench or whatever. I mean, we did that, but it was more like get them crying and broken down about what their life is meant to really be about, and then connect people back to how that was going to help them to achieve their fitness goals. And so it was always honing those skills. I came online in 2006, but that was just to support my bricks and mortar business. By that time, I had 9 trainers working under me, and I'd worked through a lot of senior management in Australia's largest health club chain, and done a lot of their business and marketing stuff for them, for their trainers, which they use to this day. And then I was back working for myself as a trainer and just doing the whole fitness thing. So I started an online presence really just to support that. But within a few years, I figured out what this internet thing could all be about, and really just figured it out through writing and through blogging and falling back in love with writing, which had, been a big love of mine the whole way through. The online industry didn't exist the way it does now. There were very few people selling anything online back then. It like literally I tried to find a business coach to help me, and I couldn't find anyone. Like, can you imagine? I just couldn't find anyone. Right. So instead I learned from bloggers, which I'm very grateful for, because I really learned how to, I guess, hone my writing and create content that stands the test of time, and bit by bit I went on the journey, and I kind of accidentally created a multi 6-figure per year business online in fitness. I know that might sound annoying, like, oh, accidentally, but it really was. And honestly, it's such a lesson and a reminder for me to this day, because all I was doing every day was waking up and I was thinking about communication, conversation, connection. Like, I just wanted to connect with people. I just wanted to talk with the amazing women that I felt called to work with. I just wanted to share what I really felt people needed to hear. I never heard of like internet marketing or funnels or opt-ins or leads or any of these things. Like, it wasn't on my radar. I was just like, oh, well, if I just tell people what I think and like what I think they need to hear, and then it stirs up some shit in the industry, because I always seem to have polarizing beliefs in anything I do. So I definitely did back in fitness. But I just spoke the truth, and then people just wanted to know more. And then I'm like, okay, all right, well, I'll create this information product. I'd heard of that by then, and then I'll create this, and then I'll create this. And next thing, it was like 30 to 35K a month that was coming in. It really came like it blindsided me, because I wasn't trying to build an online business. I wasn't trying to get rich online or make money online or anything like that so many people are doing now. Even if they're really soul-centered and they have the best of intentions, people are still coming on. They go, right, how do I achieve those income goals? How do I build a business? How do I have a proper website? I had none of that. I never heard of it. Nobody told me, or I probably would have got distracted by it. So all I did was talk, communicate, connect, genuinely share value, like epic, endless value for free. And then I started selling things super cheap, and it gradually just pretty fast in the end actually became this multi 6-figure business. And yeah, from there to actually wrap the story now, it was a continual evolution since then. Like in 2012, I rebranded just under my own name and officially started moving beyond fitness. So now, yeah, it's, as you know, alignment, ass kickery, which is my favorite word that I made up, which I also trademarked. Um, yeah, kicking the butt of the self-proclaimed 1% within the 1% success mindset. Obviously, business comes in there. But do you know what? It's the same freaking thing that I was doing when I stood in the schoolyard that day, looked at that girl in front of me, and just thought, there's some part of you that's not being fully you, and I can help. And that's all I do. And obviously I've made a lot of sales, I've made a lot of money, I've worked with amazing people all around the world as mentors, as clients, on both sides, and I created so many incredible friendships. I've several hundred different programs, a lot of cool stuff. So I've obviously actively done the work and chosen to sell, chosen to make money, chosen to create all these different things that I've created. But really, all I've been doing, and I guess the big takeaway from that, what I think is the big takeaway, is it was just calling me home. I was just following that call that I felt when I was 8 years old, or when I was 11 years old reading a Tony Robbins book, or at any other points along the journey where I had that moment of feeling like I'm not like the others and I'm not going to live that life.
Wow. I mean, just so much incredible. There's like a few things I want to tap back into, but one thing, it's a pattern in this whole, on all my podcasts, so I have to point out the number 8 again. The number 8 is a representation of the divine feminine. Almost, I don't even know, out of 66 episodes, out of the conversations, maybe 60% of people have had that number come up with something in their stories, which is like just incredible.
That's such a beautiful reflection for you.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So that's incredible. From those you guys listening and listen all the time, you guys know that, like, again, just wow, the patterns are always there. One thing you said, and it's actually been really present with this community and with this following, is they're in like the corporate space or institution space, like you've shared. And, they really are well at the masculine. I mean, they know how to make money. They know how to do the things. That's normally not the issue. I guess it's just that the issue is like, are they going to do it from a place of alignment? Are they going to do it from a place of creativity? Are they going to do it from that place? Because as we know, if you don't do that, major health issues happen, and things like cancer or COVID or all the things. And a lot of things that are happening right now is what you talked about, or what you shared, that I liked, this decision of, I was doing the academia route, or I was doing this and it just didn't feel right. Like I knew something more. And there's a lot of people here who maybe like their job. It's a good job. Like they're getting paid, but now the vaccine might be being mandatory. And they're like, I really don't want to do that. That's not something, and this is not even a political thing. This is, I'm going to put it in back decision, but I'm just saying it like that. This is like a huge thing. And I feel like what I always share to everyone is like, well, if that's what's happening, you don't want to do it. Like, it's time to live your purpose work. Like, it's time to go into that. And so why would you put something in your body that, isn't for your highest, just to have the paycheck? That's not even an actual sustainable paycheck. Like, you have this illusion. And so I want to just dive into like the story, because you had multiple points in your life when you were like, I decided and I decided and I decided. And I remember that the one moment I can relate is when I left my corporate job and I was going over to New Zealand, and I didn't know you could get a visa without like an institution or a corporation. Because in America, it's like so programmed into you, like it's so hard to get a visa. And even though I traveled all over the world already, like I literally did not know this. Like I did not think of this. And so I remember on the plane, and my whole cellular structure felt like it was being ripped out of me. Like it just felt like there was, I will never remember that moment. It was the death of something. And I feel like that forever changed so many things, my commitments and my declarations. And so for you, like, people listening, they're like, wow, she's made not even just millions of dollars, but millions in a year. You know what I'm saying? It's not even like, I should have specified, like she makes millions and millions in a year now, but over this time, this is how much she's just made on that, plus other businesses that we don't even talk about. So like, how would you say you got into that space? Like, what were the demons that you let go of in the mind? Or what was that process for the people listening right now that are really battling with this, can kind of see that transition?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can't even imagine what it must feel like to be faced with, like no jab, no job, for example. Like one of my good friends has just been told exactly that, and she loves her job and her industry, but that's what her industry is saying that they require right now. So I certainly haven't been faced with anything that extreme, but I've had so many moments of having to draw the line in the sand, as you said. And for me, it's one of my greatest lessons, because there's something that is so magical about what is available to you when you truly draw a line in the sand, and you have no idea just how much you're limiting the supernatural support, power, knowledge, wisdom that is able to come through you and to come up all around and behind and supporting you, you just have no idea, right? Until you actually make that decision. And it's the, cliche type saying of like, I don't know, build the plane while you're flying it, or ready, fire, aim, rather than ready, aim, fire, like jump off the cliff and figure out the fucking parachute on the way down. I've done exactly this in big ways multiple times throughout. Like, I mean, one of the biggest moments for me, like obviously the deciding to opt out of higher education, that was pretty huge because of the way I was brought up. And even, like I'm 41 now, so we're talking 20 years ago. Now, like even now it's so indoctrinated, and like for people who love going to uni or college or whatever, awesome, right? Like if that's your pathway. But back then, particularly, even more than now, it was the pathway. Like it was the only pathway that anyone who was intelligent would take. Like if you weren't going to university, that meant you were basically a loser. Like nobody may have said it like that, but that was pretty clear, right? Like certainly for somebody like myself, academic family. I mean, every single end of year report card from my teachers at school was, I've never met a student, more suited than Katrina to higher education. And because people saw me as someone who was going to succeed, and that's obviously what success meant. Like to the amazing credit of my parents, my teachers, like every adult who influenced me as I was growing up, I was so freaking blessed. I can't even honestly believe it, because I never had anything planted into me except for, you will do whatever you want, whatever you decide to do, you'll succeed. So I had a lot of positive, I'm so lucky, right? I know so many people had the opposite, but interestingly, I know many people who had the opposite who are also epically successful. So that's great. But yeah, like I was only ever told, whatever you decide to do will work. So it's not like I was told, don't go and pave your own way, but it was kind of like, whatever you decide to do will work. And obviously what you will do is this, right? So it was a big decision to turn away from that. And it was terrifying. And at that age, I definitely felt like, what am I doing? I am destroying my life. But something deeper inside of me was calling me forward. And I could never have articulated that back then like I do now. I didn't understand all the things I understand now. I didn't know to back and trust myself in that way. So I really was flying blind. And I mean, that was just one moment, because then some years later, I was, very successful in the fitness industry. I was very well known throughout Australia. I was, I was so entrepreneurial anyway. Since I was a little kid, I was selling things from the age of 3 door to door, and I never stopped, like I had memberships in clubs when I was 8, and weird initiations I would put my friends through. And I was an Avon lady when I was 11. Like it was always hustle. So as a trainer, I always found ways to advance, my pathway, and basically keep appointing myself, climb the ranks within the fitness industry. I pitched myself to the big health club chain that I had my business under the banner of, and told them I should run workshops for their trainers all around the country, and basically just, appointed myself. And then I would do all these different things. But when the time came to leave that company, like I'd already quit the management side a few years back. That was another huge thing for me. It was scary. Like I wanted to be top within the personal training department management. I wanted to become top in the country. I was second top in my state. Like I really, climbed the ladder, and it was prestigious within my company and within the industry, and it was fun and all. There was a lot of perks. But then I was like looking at my boss and thinking, he only makes like $4,000 more a year than me, and he's so freaking stressed and unhappy and miserable. And I was pretty stressed and unhappy and not healthy either, despite the industry. They really, squeezed every bit of juice out of us. And I sort of looked at the pathway ahead, and I was like, why am I pursuing that? I'm literally just pursuing that because that's the success pathway that's been put in front of me. So I'm going, oh, okay, this is what I should aspire to then. And then, I decided to leave. I mean, gosh, quitting that job even just to put myself on the line to figure out how to make all my own money again as a trainer, rather than receiving a paycheck and being a trainer. That was terrifying. I was shaking. I felt like I was going to vomit. But that, like any decision I've made since then, have been so many big ones. Like there was another one a few years later when I quit the personal training industry altogether and decided to back myself in the online thing. So sort of more directly what you were asking. And I did it. I always did these things. And to this day, I do these things within a space of 2 weeks or less. Like, I feel like I just don't fundamentally have it in me. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. When you actually get to the point of being done, I feel like people like us just fundamentally do not have it in them to keep pursuing something that is wrong for their soul. Like we might stay blind to it for whatever period of time, or maybe we're like numbing ourselves or whatever, so we're able to avoid or distract it. But when it really becomes known, the move you're meant to make, I just find I literally don't have it in me to keep going, but it's still terrifying to make that decision to like anchor myself to a new reality that doesn't yet exist. But the way I've always done it, even long before I understood it, and now I understand the energetics of that and why it's so powerful and why it works. But I always still did it that way where I was like, here we go then. And I would just throw myself off that ledge and I might like talk about it for a few days, but it was always in less than a 2-week period. And I would completely just draw the line in the sand, throw myself off the ledge, and basically, yeah, anchor myself into reality that didn't yet exist. And then it would always, always, always come to fruition what I saw inside of me, and usually pretty fast with every different thing that I've done. And I really think that's because I went all in. You know, like my mum used to say to me growing up, something that always stood with me, still stays with me, where she would say, you know, she was talking about being Christian, like, you can't be half Christian. You have to decide. There's no gray area. You know, you can't be like one foot in the devil's camp and one foot in God's camp. You're either Christian or you're not. There's no like wall that you can sit on in between. If you're on the fence, you're on the other side. Like whatever anyone thinks about that, that was the analogy, right? It's a clear thing. Like Christianity, you're either a follower of Christ or you're not. Like it's no in between. Pregnancy, you're either pregnant or you're not. There's no in between here. There's certain things in life that are black and white. Decision making needs to be that finite. So many people seem to think that a decision is something where they think about something they want, maybe they visualize about it, maybe they meditate on it, maybe they hire the best people in the world to help them with it, maybe they do so many of the things that would seem smart to do, but they're actually sitting on the fucking wall of the decision thinking that this counts as moving towards the thing, and it just doesn't. You're either on that side or on that side. There's no freaking wall to sit on. If you think you're sitting on the wall, you're on the other side that you don't want to be on. And I just wish more people understood that, because like I said at the start of this, there's something so powerful and so magical about just saying fully yes. Like another point in time, some years later, when I'd gone through building the fitness business, I'd built the fitness business, like I said, to multi 6 figures, but then I transitioned into business coaching, and I accidentally basically switched out surface-based fitness coaching for surface-based business coaching. Like I was doing sales and marketing coaching, and I was finding myself thinking, what just happened? Like, how did I just like curveball myself somehow? Because one of the reasons I wanted to move on from health and fitness was I just knew it's not my soul calling. Like I love health and fitness. I'm so passionate about fitness to this day. It's a huge part of my identity, but I was never excited to talk about meal plans or training programs. Like it was like, here we go. But really what I wanted to talk about was, what are you here for? What does your soul want? Like, where are you not living in alignment with your truth? And like emotional eating or lack of motivation or any reason people didn't achieve their fitness goals. I was like, sure, we'll get to the practical steps bit, but let's do the inner work stuff, because let's face it, that's really what's going on here. And so my clients would get epic results. But obviously, as part of my brand and my business, yeah, I was doing like the training programs and the meal plans and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I've had enough now. I'd been in the industry 13 years. I just wanted to be able to speak to people about what's inside of them. Like I really wanted to do, what I do now. But I thought that I was making that transition, and it was a huge line in the sand moment. Like, okay, I'm going to move on from the fitness business, start my website under my own name, and, I'm going to like be a success coach or whatever, I guess is what I thought at the time. But next thing I was like, I've just switched out freaking meal plans for, I don't know, like sales formulas or marketing. Like, I was like, what's happened? This is not what it was supposed to be. So then I had a huge year where I had to live in hospital from about the 20-week mark during my second pregnancy, and nearly died. And I had a really rare condition, and it was a very scary time. I was just like nearly bleeding out continually and having to sleep, upright in the labor ward and just monitored. And it was an intense period. And that's a whole story, obviously, but once I came through that, like the biggest miracle of my life, and my son's now, everything worked out, miracle. He's going to turn 8 next month. So
another 8.
Yeah, right. But that year was big. So after all the terrifying things didn't happen, and essentially we created a miracle, like fully. but then what happened, obviously you have such a huge thing happen in your life and you just go, I'm done, right? With anything that's not aligned. So with the business was on track to hit its first $1 million year. And I just said to Enzo, his dad, who was my husband at the time, who's now my ex-husband that I'm about to remarry, as you said, I said to Enzo, if this is the past $2 million, I don't want it. I'm going to walk away from all of it. I'm going to stop selling everything I'm selling. I'm going to shut it all down. I'm going to stop doing it all. I just want to write and speak the stuff that I want to write and speak. If I never make another cent again on the internet, so be it. If I have to, I can go back to the gym and make $5,000 a week easy as a personal trainer. I don't care. I'm going to go all in. And I literally said all that like that, word for word. So this was late 2013. He was born in September of 2013. I really meant it. I really made a soul contract that I was just going to give my life for what my life was given to me for. And I did. I turned my back completely on the whole business. I just walked away. I drew that line in the sand. I'm going to write and speak what I want to write and speak. If people don't like it, they can fuck off. I was pretty aggressive about it. I was just angry at myself, right? And I was just ready. I was ready to just go all in on what was inside of me. And I really meant it when I said, if I never make another cent again, then I don't care. I'm going to write this stuff for the rest of my life because I know that it's what I'm here to do. And I would have done it. And I would have just gone, there's a million ways to make money. That's what I said to myself at the time. And I would have followed through. And I think because I fully submitted in that moment, like that was one of the most game-changing experiences of my life, because within, I think within like a matter of weeks from then, I made like 40K cash received out of nowhere, like basically restarting again. And then within 6 months, it was 50K months. Within 8 months, I had an 80K month. Within 10 months from that day, I had my first 100K month. And since then, I've had over 100 consecutive months that have been like, well, 100K, then 200, 300, 400, and just, keeps going. So yeah, when I look back, like, how did you do this or whatever? I'm like, well, obviously I did a lot of work. Obviously I sell a lot, I create a lot, I'm consistent, I'm disciplined. But I'm disciplined from soul, which is very different, I guess, to how people think of discipline, because I've been the person who failed to follow through a million times, right? Like I was always the person who walked away from everything, every business idea, friendships, not so much anymore. But yeah, there was like a period of my life where I felt like I never follow through on anything. I'm always walking away, always walking away. But the thing that I was always walking towards, and where I drew the line in the sand again and again and again and again, was I was always just walking into soul. And every time I drew a line in the sand for something that came from that place, whatever it was, whether it was quitting a job way back then, whether it was leaving fitness, whether it was appointing myself as whatever, whether it was turning my back on a business that was about to make $1 million, it never didn't work. And it also always worked very fast. But I think that's truly because I understood that concept of there's no on the fence, you're in or you're out.
There's so many powerful things you said in there. Like, I feel like I was like listening, I'm like, I don't even know which audio clip I'm going to pull for the record. There's like so many things in that, but I just want to wrap it up. And I just want to say like some things are really important in what you said there. And one thing that I've learned from you, and it really changed my life, and I hope that you guys listening, listen to this, is like, are you giving your life to what gave your life, like what God gave you your life for? And that's like one thing, like I really never thought about that in a lot of ways, even with like cancer. And a lot of people that are in this community, they've had cancer or health disease or something around that because of, their life, and they maybe haven't fully awakened to what that actually means or why that would have manifested in the forms. That's why they're here. But what's beautiful is you sharing that. And I think for everyone listening is like, you really have to ask yourself that like deeply and ask yourself that often, because it's going to be changing frequently based on all the time. Yeah. Based on how you're evolving and where you're going. And the other thing that I want to share that Kat is not, I feel like she could have shared way more, but I want to give it to her here. Like she is literally a sales genius. Like this woman like does sales all the time. And so when she's saying like she was in the hospital and this is going, like she was still on a workshop selling, like she shared this like of things like, so for those of you here, I know like some people have bad, mindset around sales, if it's like too pushy or if we're spiritual, we get the knowledge. That's a whole conversation itself. But Kat is literally one of the most incredible salespeople that I know.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, you got to get your own ego out of that. Like if you're worrying about selling, like imagine this is my favorite analogy I came up with. Like imagine you went to your favorite pizza place and they were like, no, we're not selling pizza today. We already sold pizza 5 days last week. We don't want to be too salesy. People are going to think whatever, right? You'd be like, fuck. Or, even worse, you went to your favorite coffee place. They're like, no, we've been selling a lot of coffee. We're pausing that today. Like just get over it, right? It's a business. Is it open for business? Then sell. For me, it's just, like I always wanted to make money, right? Like it was always about soul, but I was always like, I'm going to be rich. Like, why wouldn't I? But I just saw that I'm going to make millions, impact millions, maybe even change the world a little bit. And it was just very clear that the money bit is just a choice and it's a decision, and just swing the freaking bat. Like something doesn't work. Okay. You're on the floor in the fetal position crying. Like I've been there literally and definitely energetically many times, but literally even. So what? Pick yourself up, keep going. Like, are you here to build a business, or are you here to, feed and soothe your ego? So I guess for me, like I really love about myself that I'm so like nothing except soul, nothing except truth, nothing except what's inside of me. Like it's only about, those deeper beyond parts of me, and saying yes from faith, from soul, listening to God, etc. But at the same time, I'm pretty freaking hardcore about results, and I don't see these two worlds as separate, which many people seem to be one or the other. I just marry them together. I'm like, of course I'm going to do the fucking work. Of course I'll get results. Of course I'll sell all day, every day. And of course it gets to come completely from soul, feel super fun and flow and easy. Life itself steps up to support me and come through me. But yeah, like at the end of the day, you want to make more money, maybe make more offers more of the time, right? Sometimes I think, have I really got here because I was so good at listening to what's inside, or is it just that I swung the fucking bat more often than anyone else? Well, it's a mixture, obviously. But yeah, like in the hospital, I mean, I had like a first really big month there. All I did was sales calls. I taught some webinars. There's a whole bunch of webinars from that period where you can hear all the hospital announcements in the background, because I used to sit up the back of the nurses station in the hospital cafeteria when I was allowed out of my room, or if I was on a day where I was allowed to walk or whatever, depending where the bleeding had been. So I did a lot, but people are like, I can't believe you're doing that. Like you need to rest. I'm like, what am I like? How is it restful to lay in my hospital bed watching Dr. Phil? I might as well be making sales and like energizing my soul, So all I did was do my normal morning routine, like do my journaling in the morning, do my pregnancy yoga if I was on a day where I was allowed to move, and then do my writing and then do sales. Like nothing's changed ever since. I'm just in a better surround. Well, the hospital was pretty good, but in a better surround overall now. It was a great hospital. It was a very supportive time, despite how scary it was. It was a positive experience for a terrifying experience.
Yeah. And I just want to share for those of you listening on this thing, then we'll wrap it up for sure. But the thing I wanted to say is when you said that, it's been so interesting to me, because I think a lot of us listening, we get scared of sales because it's like, I don't want to be too pushy or hard, but it's like, when I think of it the way you share it, it's like, you naturally have an energy, and as an energetic being, you give energy, you give life force all the time. And if you're not speaking, you're basically not giving yourself life force, because it's not coming through you. And you're also not giving this world life force that needs to be coming through you, which is like the energy of moving through. And if you're a good person, you have something to say, which everyone here is, you need to freaking say the damn thing. And when you do that, you're only going to get results. You're only going to magnetize through law of attraction the people you really want to be around, the conversations you really want to have. Otherwise you're living a fake, false reality. And that's why you're attracting the things you don't want, because you're not even talking about the things you need to be talking about. And so it's like, literally just that easy.
Well, I mean, it's irresponsible not to sell. Like it's irresponsible to your message. You are responsible to your message and to your soul work and to your purpose work. You give that thing life. If you don't let it live and breathe, what happens then? Nobody else can bring your soul work to life. They may bring something similar, right? But you have a responsibility to the work inside of you, which for anyone here listening definitely transcends simply the free side of things. It's irresponsible to your message not to be selling. It's also irresponsible to the people who you're here to help. So this is what I mean when I said get the ego out of the way. Like you're making it about yourself if you're not selling consistently. Either there's something inside of you that's meant to come out, that's meant to help and serve people, in which case get over yourself, show up, sell and serve. Or if you don't know that, maybe go and revisit that. But is it true that you don't know that? Or it's fear just trying to get into the driver's seat of your life. Like go deeper, go into the place where you are certain and you freaking know. You may not have the experience or the skill or the ability to communicate yet, because neither did either of us before we practiced it. Like, oh my God, my first 2-minute video I ever recorded literally took me 8 hours, and I had pretty much a nervous breakdown and couldn't look at anyone or do anything or work for 2 weeks afterwards. Like, people just think I woke up like this. But this is years of practice and years of saying yes and years of appointing myself when it was uncomfortable, when it was scary, when I didn't know how, when there was no reason for me to think that I should be somebody people should listen to, when my eyebrows look like a squiggly heart rate line, like, all the things. It was always just do it anyway. And you bit by bit become this person.
Yeah. I mean, I so agree with that. And I mean, throughout your whole story, everything you shared, I mean, you've shared so much. And I know for you guys listening, like, you've related so many things of why the reason to say no is just an excuse. Like, that's literally your whole thing. And that's like
it's never valid.
Yes.
Like,
so,
it's never more valid than the deeper stuff.
Yes. So, well, thank you so much. I know that getting Kat's time is incredible, you guys. So really tune in. This is something to listen to like again and again, because there's so much to it. So I definitely would re-listen to at least all of it, at least 3 or 4 times.
At least all of it.
Yeah, at least all of it, 3 or 4 times. And make sure to leave a review. Make sure to share it with your friends. And then, Kat, is there anything else you want to leave as like a final reminder? We'll have all of your social media, all of your things in the show notes, but I know it's Katrina Ruth, I think .com, right? And that's what yours is on Instagram. I might be wrong though, but say it.
The Katrina Ruth Show.
Okay, there we go.
But yeah, my final statement is you're never going to look back and say to yourself, well, gee, I'm so glad that I waited so long to be fully me.
Yeah, that part is 100% true. That part is true. So, okay, thank you guys so much. We are so grateful that you chose to tune in to receive the frequency, and we love you. Like I said, share it, leave a review, and make sure to at least listen to it 3 or 4 times before you go to bed or when you wake up. Love you guys so much.